There's nothing like turning your enemies into a heap of molten slag. Gotta love Hellblasters. They're probably one of my most favorite units in the 8th edition and on, especially with the introduction of the Primaris. And this video, we are going to be taking a very, very in-depth look into the Ultramarines Primaris Hellblasters units, and we're going to be diving in on what makes them unique, what makes them badass, and without further ado, let's get to the review. Hellblaster number one. What does number one have to offer? Ta-da! It's nice that they also actually offer a base along with the action figure now. Starting off with Hellblaster Grunt number one. Let's take a look at what's going on with this lovely Ultramarines action figure. So, looking at the helmeted area of this action figure, there is actually shading that's going on here. Although, again, it's not as pronounced as it was before. Fear not, brethren. You still have your shading right here. It's very light, but it still does exist on this action figure. However, I would have liked to see some shading here in the vents. It would have made these things jump out. But there's one thing I'm going to point out here that JoyToy did a fantastic job, and most people already know what I'm going to say about this is the lenses. The lenses have a nice, tasty depth of flavor, as you can see here. Your characteristic undercoated silver, as well as the overcoated translucent red, which I'm glad that they departed from the regular flat red on the helmeted versions of their action figures. So I can definitely stand by that, and I hope that this is a trend that does continue. So moving on, we have the pauldron here that is nicely screened with no issues whatsoever, and on the other side is your characteristic Ultramarines U. On the forearm of this action figure, you get to see a small instrument panel, clearly with a red and green light, and this silver panel going on over here. However, that is non-existent on this side of the action figure. Now moving on the middle, you have your classic gold wing skull. Nothing much going on over here. I do detect some very light shading going on. And then as we look at the rest of this action figure, it does look very clean in my opinion, in which I actually like this kind of look. And once again, there is shading that is still prominent between the armor panels and within these recesses. So you can see that this is a darker blue right here within these vent type areas. And then within these armor panels down here is more shading that's going on. And you can see that shading does pervade throughout the whole entire action figure. So as we flip this guy around, you get to see an empty holster right here in the back. There is no highlights whatsoever on this holster. And then what's actually very interesting is this new part here, which I believe are the plasma fuel cells. And the plasma fuel cells are clearly the normal bolt gun silver that's been highlighted with a light silver here. So aside from that, this is fairly a plain looking Space Marine. We're going to take a look at the respirator version. So as you can see here, he's got a mohawk type of cut, brown color, absolutely no shading whatsoever on this thing. There is shading, however, on the deep creases of this guy's eyebrow. The eyes have been screened on pretty well. And then obviously you have this respirator that goes over the Space Marine's face. So we're going to put this guy down and take a look at the bolt pistol. Really nothing much to see here. What we have seen before. Black casing, weathered silver. Here is your characteristic holstered bolt pistol. And you have a purity seal that's dangling down here. The holster does not have any highlights. Now to go to the meat and potatoes of the whole entire action figure, which is this Mark III Belisarius invented plasma incinerator. So looking at the body of this incinerator, this is obviously way larger than your regular plasma gun. This is quite imposing and quite badass looking in my opinion. Let's just take a look at what's going on. So you have the silver muzzle here. The whole entire casing of this thing is black. Unfortunately, the coils are just kind of a blue color. There have been other coils in the past that have been undercoated with a silver and then overcoated with a translucent blue, and I think that would actually have suited this action figure a little bit better than how it is right now. And then back here you have a bunch of silver elements. And then connected to this plasma incinerator are a bunch of cords and cables. And as you can see here, these cords and cables are of a soft plastic bendy material. And this then attaches to the backpack over here. And you can see the fuel cells back here, which is pretty cool. And these fuel cells here does actually look like the same fuel cells that are in the back of this action figure. Let's take a look to see if there's any differences from this one to the other grunt. All right, we have grunt number 2 ahead of us. Let's see if there's any differences that we can pick up. Looks like this helmeted area is the same. Pauldron area is also the same. Midsection, no difference. Looks like the whole entire body of this action figure is as same as his other brethren. So the only other difference that I see here is that instead of the plasma fuel cells, there is this particular looking icon over here that's in the back of this action figure. And that's the only thing that sets this guy apart from the other one. So we're going to put the body of this guy down, take a look at the respirator version of this guy. And clearly his hair has been completely singed off due to the high heat that these plasma incinerators give off. However, I will have to say that the eyes are actually very, very nicely screened on this guy. And you can see a little bit of shading within the deep furrows of this guy's head. But aside from that, that's pretty much it for this guy. Are there any differences here with the plasma incinerators? Just by casual glance, I do not believe so. Everything is as similar as his other brethren. So we're now going to quickly move on to the sergeant of the squad. Okay, let's take a quick look at the sergeant and what is the difference of the sergeant compared to the rest of his gruntlings, I suppose you want to call them. So clearly the sergeant has a red helmet as indicated by the Codex Astartes. And the nice thing in this area is that once again, you get to see the nice depth for these lenses, the undercoated silver and overcoated translucent green this time. Plenty of shading going on with the helmet area. And then moving down here, we have seen all this stuff before. No departure, minus the sergeant badging on the left pauldron. There is, however, a difference on the left arm. You can see that this guy is rocking a skeletal bionic arm that we've seen before also in other action figures such as the Iron Hands. And as you can see here, there is really nice shading that's going on in between these servo arms or whatever you want to call it. And then it's been nicely highlighted up this silver color. So moving on down, you get to see the sergeant's designation on the right knee. And that's about the only other difference from the front. Flipping to the back, you get more fancy stuff going here. An empty holster. And then this very interesting looking iconography here that has 2 separate pouches and this, I don't know what you want to call this, but icon, I suppose, is the simplest thing that's in the middle of it. So that is the difference between him and the rest of his grunt. Now, let's take a look at the unhelmeted version. And this guy looks very cool to me. So up top here, you do have shaded white hair that stands out. And he's got a very large hawkish nose. And he's definitely screaming at the top of his lungs to melt the enemy. So you can see a nicely screened eye over here. And he's also got a, I suppose, bionic eye, which is very cool. I don't think I've seen this before either on any of the JoyToy action figures. And as you can see here, he is screaming orders. So this is a very cool head sculpt that's going on. And put this guy down. And because he is a sergeant, he is given the benefit of having a plasma pistol. And the plasma pistol, as you can see here, mimics the plasma incinerator. So you've got the silver muzzle here, the blue coils, black casing, and then silver accoutrements around. So we're going to put that down. Are there any difference between the sergeant's plasma incinerator versus the gruntlings? From cursory glance, I don't believe that there's too much of a difference, although there's a separate area down here that's a little bit different. The other ones have like a flashlight implement down here, But aside from that, I would have to say everything looks pretty much the same as what we have seen before. And so we have finished yet another visit to the homeworld of the Ultramarines, which is Macragge. So let me wrap this one up. So action figure fans, I am going to give you my 2 cents with regards to these Hellblasters. So in terms of design, I would have to say these guys look pretty bland. I think that there's not a lot of adornments and not a lot of little knickknacks, pizzazz, icons that you would normally find in, let's just say, your character models. I mean, these guys do a lot of good work on the miniature battlefield. However, I feel that, again, these guys look a little bit bland in an army. And do I recommend getting this? Well, I mean, it depends. If you're obviously a Hellblasters fan, actually I am, that's one of the reasons why I got that, because I love the ethos and I love the plasma incinerators that these guys are toting around. But regardless, looking at this action figure itself, there's really nothing to make these guys stand out from your regular infantry model. One thing I'm going to say is that the nice thing is these guys actually do come with their own separate 3 spare heads, and they're also bare, so you can actually see the character on them. That was probably the biggest drawing point for me, aside from, like I said, the plasma incinerators, for me to get these action figures. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in so religiously to my reviews every single week. I appreciate your support, and I hope you continue to give me your support. And I'm, again, very thankful for all of you who tune in and definitely bolster up the channel. Without you guys, I would not be here. So anyways, with that being said, hope you enjoyed this review. There's going to be more reviews, like I said. September is going to be a very, very heavy month in terms of unique characters, so please make sure to tune in then. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next one.